All right, man. I am loving that music to start off a show. It's been now 2 episodes of having the background music. It gets me pumped up every time. So, I think it's like a really fitting song for this show in the sense of talking to entrepreneurs, telling their story, telling their journey. And the song's title is "We Won't Back Down," and I think that's a real big integral piece as an entrepreneur. Now, this is something different today. I've had 62 guests on Coffee and Grit, and every single one of them I've had a personal one-on-one conversation with. Today is the first time I'm sitting down with this guest in a one-on-one situation. We've seen each other in group session or group settings and whatnot, but I've been an admirer of this guy from afar, not in a creepy way, Eric, I promise. But I've been an admirer of this guy from afar because I've watched how he's come in and really built his brand, really did some things to bring together and pull together the community, and I see taking over this community really, really quickly. And so I want to know more. I want to know more of his story. And this is the first time we're having a conversation, so we get to know more about Eric Meldrum now together. So Eric, man, who's the man, the myth, the legend?
Yeah, we can go into all that.
Outside of the blueberries and grapes for breakfast.
Outside of the blueberries and grapes. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. This is great. Like I love doing this type of stuff, entrepreneurial, community building, just building businesses and bringing people together. That's really what I'm all about. So yeah, I'd love to dive into this, man.
Man, it's super fitting. I love that small business story, that entrepreneurial journey. And again, it's like, how did you get started? How did you start doing what you're doing now?
Oh, let's see how far I want to take you back. So I graduated from Western with a supply chain degree. I'll just kind of start there. I went into Western not knowing like anybody in college. Like, I don't know what I want to do. Like, yeah, I'll try this, I'll try that. I had a job in college. I started working at a Red Bull distributor and just fell into supply chain. And I learned very quickly, like, hey, I'm good at this, right? I'm good putting operations and puzzle pieces together and trying to just figure stuff out. And I really enjoyed it. So I heard that Western had a great supply chain program, jumped into it. Fast forward, I started working for a startup company out of Kalamazoo called Mophie. They made the cell phone case with the batteries in it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And
I came from the cellular industry, and we sold Mophie in our stores. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I saw this on your LinkedIn. I'm like, I can't wait to talk about this.
Yeah, so Mophie was really like the thing that got the entrepreneurial bug really in me, because I rode this wave with this company from like 30 million in revenue when I came in, and I took the job as a senior in college. Like, so I was literally working full time, going to school, for my senior year full time. And I took this, opportunity to just learn as much as I could have about the business. And it was really like the grit and, for your show, like the grit, but it was more of a necessity because no one else in the company was going to do it. Right. So I just had to fill that void of like the instinct took over. Like, okay, I got to figure this out. I got to figure that out. Ask these questions. So that's really what got me started. I ended up moving out to California with the company, exited the company and came back to Michigan when we were about 250 million. So within a 3-year period, we went from 30 million to 250 million. Some crazy shit happened along the way. A lot of traveling around the world. I went to China, Netherlands, North America, setting up logistics centers, setting up transport lanes with the company. And that's when I really started. And this is only three years into my career in supply chain. And that's when I really started realizing, like, I don't think supply chain is going to be the long-term thing for me. Right? There was something about it that was just like the traveling and this unappreciative department in the organization that no praise ever came my way. It was always, hey, great job, but you missed this. Yeah. Great job, but you missed that.
Great job, but you got to love that.
Exactly. And I'm like, oh, this is great. So this is going to be the forever story. And then I started talking to some friends that, had taken jobs with GM, Ford, and they're about 3 to 5 years into their careers. And I'm like thinking about, okay, I only know this one company. What else is out there? And I started talking to them and they're like, yeah, so I buy this bolt that goes on, like this car. And I'm like, that's it? Like, yeah, buy that one bolt. I'm like, sounds boring as shit, dude. like, do you do anything else? And they're like, nope. I just, put my RFQ out there, and some contract they'll pick it up. Like, wow. I'm like, so do you do anything else in the supply chain? No, that's it. So at that point, it was like a light bulb went off. I'm like, okay, I have something really good here. I got to use that. Like going into one of these big threes is not my thing. So I continued along with the startup entrepreneurial, spirit. Came back to Michigan, landed in Ann Arbor, got really tied in with the startup community there. Started working for a company called Industry Star. We did supply chain solutions and augmented their supply chain teams when companies were just starting off. So we were more of like a consulting advisory firm. One of the clients that we had poached me there. I took over director of operations for their company. It was a vitamin dispensary company out of Plymouth, Michigan, called Tespo. They have since got acquired and gone on to do other things in the pharmaceutical space. But then it was about that time frame where I was bouncing from company to company that my wife and I were getting married. We were building a family. And everything was involving travel. Everything was 7 a.m. to midnight because we were dealing with vendors in China. So it was one of those things. I'm very grateful, right? Grateful. And everybody asked, like, would you change anything about going into supply chain? No, because that's what got me here today. So there's nothing I would change. I can't say that I would change anything about that. So, but about that time, I was starting to think about, like, is this the long-term thing for me? Like, is this fulfilling me, spiritually? Is this fulfilling me, from all of my beliefs and like what I want to do in this world? And, I just kept coming back to the answer was no. So I started looking outside, and like any entrepreneur, you're looking at, like, how can I grow my like online services, or like, should I start a course? Should I start this? Like, am I going to do Amazon drop shipping and like all that crazy stuff?
Yep.
And trust me, I've gone down rabbit holes, like, countless hours on YouTube, buying this course, that course. And it just, none of it ever stuck. It was just like, I just feel like I'm just throwing stuff at the wall here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not really enjoying, like, I haven't found that thing. And then, my wife and I bought our first house, and about the same time, all my friends were buying houses. So we were sharing stories and things of that nature. And everyone had like a really negative thing to say, like their transaction went bad, or like, the realtor did this. And like, I don't have any of this. Like, I had a great experience. We found our house. Our realtor got us a really good deal on it. She was great. I'm like, something about the process was different for us than it was for them. And so I contacted my realtor, and I started poking and prying a little bit, just ask, hey, what do you do in your day-to-day? What does a realtor look like? And she was very transparent. Like, we sat down and had lunch, and she's like, this is my business. This is how I built it. This is what I do on a daily basis. And it was nothing like you see on HGTV or like any of those shows, $1 Million Listing, Selling Sunset. Nobody's driving Ferraris around here. Like nobody's selling these $1 million homes and not dealing with shit on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So that was really refreshing to not just have like, oh, it's great. Like, you're going to make a bunch of money. And like, she told me the bad stuff too. Like, this is the stuff you deal with.
So important. And so often people sell I'm driving around a Ferrari. I've got so much money. I'm so successful. You can do it too.
Exactly. And I was so appreciative for that, because I then started looking at that and saying, okay, and back to my operations background, here's where the process broke down for my friends, right? Because there wasn't communication, there wasn't education or something that gave them the answer before that bad thing happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which could have been avoidable. So, in the back of my head, I kind of like that stuck, and I was like, I went on with my day and months and months and months. And then I just kept thinking about real estate. I just kept thinking about it. And like, at one point it would just clicked. I'm like, go into real estate. Like, why are you not going into real estate? So I got licensed in 2018, started building my real estate business at that time. And I still worked for the first 2.5 years as a full-time, consultant, in supply chain for a couple companies around here. And then around year 3, things just like really took off. All right. It was that momentum had built. And then I was like, all right, I think I can sunset the full-time gig. Took that leap of faith as an entrepreneur, and now here we are.
That's amazing. So what were you doing through that period while working full time to grow your business?
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was literally, so I started off, like anything I do, I'm doing research. I'm trying to understand, what successful people have done before me, and just R&D it, right? Rip off and duplicate.
Yep.
So I started studying what a couple other realtors that I kind of gravitated towards were doing in their business. And there's a couple, as like anything, I learned a lot of hard lessons. So I learned I don't like cold calling, right?
Yep.
I don't want to door knock. I don't want to do some of the old school tactics, and that for me kind of pushed me into a new school approach, right? Which we know now today is like social media,
Yep.
right? Everybody's doing social media. And if you're not doing social media, specifically on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, like you might as well not even be a realtor, right? And that doesn't mean that all realtors need to do that, but like there will be a tipping point here in the future, and I think we're probably in that momentum build right now, where it's going to shift,
Yep.
where some of the old school tactics, they're just not going to work, right? You're just not going to be able to build a business without getting known through social media. And I was actually just having this mastermind with our agents right before I came here. We have a newer agent who started a year ago, and she went hard at social media, but she's doing old school tactics where she's cold calling for sale by owners and still crushing it on social media. And we just asked her today, so what do you think you'd be successful just calling for sale by owners and not doing the social media? The answer was 100% yes. She goes, but the momentum and the amount of power that the social media has given me to leverage my listings I'm getting from sale by owners into more listings from neighbors, people in the community. She goes, that was a game changer for me. So at that point, we're like, it's no option. Like, yes, you can still build a business, but if you want to accelerate that business super fast, you need to be doing social media. So I did social media in the first 2 years. I went deep down rabbit holes, like learning Facebook, how to do ads on Facebook, how to, essentially build a lead funnel, right, that I could service while I was still, working full time. And that was probably the most difficult part. Luckily, I was work from home.
Yeah,
I don't recommend this for everybody. If you have a 9-to-5 job and you actually have to show up into an office, or you're like in construction or something where you need to be physically there, real estate's a really tough industry to get into. Right? I was just fortunate enough to have a work from home job. It's office job, and I had the time to make the calls, make the connections, and work on my business while I was growing it.
And it's just so awesome that you took advantage of that opportunity to do that. And not everybody has that, because you do have to. Some people are at work, but taking advantage of that is amazing.
Yep, absolutely. So from there, I just kept at the social media thing. Just kept learning, and I always say I'm a practitioner of real estate. I don't. Once I got licensed, I'm licensed, right? Now you have a real estate business. And no, the clients didn't once I got my license, no, the clients didn't come swarming to me.
Yeah.
Right. So I had to figure out how am I going to connect with people? My wife and I also are not from Brighton. Right. So we didn't have a sphere of influence, as we call it in real estate, or a community of group and friends or church friends that we could plug into really quickly. We had to grow that. I had to grow that of people, people who now know me, but they don't really know me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
You're an example of that, right? Like, of me, but we've never met.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And until a long while ago,
a few months ago. Yeah.
Yeah. But that was how I built the business, is really just hammering social media and learning as much as I could about the business, and then just putting the work, right? Just making the calls, going on the appointments. And I never said no, right? The word no never crossed my mind. Right. For anybody listening to this at a later date, that was the one thing across all of my roles, right, and businesses, is if I was saying no, I was limiting myself. So I just never said no, and I was like the movie Yes Man.
Yeah. Okay.
Literally, that is me. And it got to a point where I was taking on so much that I eventually had to start saying no to in different ways. I had to say no to this lead gen program or this. But when it came to clients, hey, can you show a house at 7:00 at night? 100%. I'll be there. Can you show a house on Sunday at 5:00? 100%. I'll be there.
It's solving a problem, and it goes back to what you were talking about in your experience in supply chain. I love how you said you wouldn't take that back because you learned so much, right? And I would imagine the first thing that stands up in my mind, again, is that problem solving, and how you, with social media, I see how you created a group that solved a problem in the community. and it brought people together. And then, oh, by the way, you run this group, and it's so awesome because people get a chance to get to know you. But how many people are in this group?
Well, as of today, over 25,000.
25,000. It's like the place in Brighton to go to find out what's happening.
Yep. Brighton, Michigan happenings.
Brighton, Michigan happenings.
Yep, exactly.
That's really the name. Yeah.
Yep.
So how did you come up with that idea?
So that was a very accidental, great thing that happened in our lives. So when we got here in Brighton, we moved here in around 2016, and we were, just having our first kid. We were looking for things to do. Again, we weren't from here, so we were looking for things to do. And, back where we came from, we always had friends groups and, things that we could plug into. Well, we didn't have that here. So we sought different calendars out and had to go on like Brighton's website, the Chamber's website. Like, we're looking for events. We're like, wouldn't it be cool if like we just had a place where you could go, like ask somebody and then they would just tell us what's going on?
Yeah.
Or like we could post something, and if some of their parents wanted to get together for a play date, like they could just show up. So that was literally how the group started. Right.
It's solving a problem for you, right?
Yeah. It solved my problem as a parent. And, I was working, but it was more for my wife and kids to get, kind of plugged into something and have things to do during the day. So we did that. And for the first couple of years, we just really kind of let it grow organically. I didn't do anything with it. It was not intentional. It had nothing to do. In 2016, I wasn't even a licensed real estate agent. Had nothing.
So you created, I didn't catch that point.
Yeah.
You created it far before the real estate.
2 years before I even got into real estate. All right. So I had the group, and I've always got this from other realtors in the areas. Like, oh, you got the group and you did that to get your business. Like, you hear little about like, if you look on Brighton, Michigan Happenings, like you probably won't even know I'm a realtor.
Yeah.
Right. Unless you click on my profile and see, oh yeah, it's a realtor.
Yep.
So we created in 2016, and then yes, it's a happy accident that I became a real estate agent and started a real estate business here. And now we have this group in a community of people I serve in the community.
And I didn't know that it was beforehand. That's so awesome. But I've been like, that's so genius. One, to get to know people in the community, being new. And then I say solving a problem because there's so many people. Livingston County is one of the fastest growing counties in the country. And so you have all these people moving in that are looking for that same thing you're looking for, that I don't have friends, or what restaurant's good to eat at, or I need a plumber. I need I see that happening all the time. If I have this situation, who would be good? Who would be a good plumber? Who would be a good heating and cooling, whatever.
I've actually met so many great business owners like yourself, from the group, just by getting plugged in, to those conversations and, having that dialogue with people about, who's a great, HVAC company, Trusted Heating and Cooling, right? I know Jen and Alex are great people. This is a plug for them.
Yeah, plug for them. Trusted's great.
Yeah. So that happens all the time.
Awesome. So you're cruising, and so you kind of got the social media thing even before that, because you the Brighton Happenings page, and that's how much has that grown by that time? By the time you started your real estate company,
when we started the real estate company, we were, I want to say probably like 6,000 people in like 2018. It was a very slow grow. We didn't hit like 15,000 people probably until right before COVID. COVID hit, and it was like boom. Like things took off because people were home, and they were just bored on their couch and looking for things to do.
It's amazing. Mm-hmm. Again, all the problems that it solves, and like you didn't plan that to happen, obviously 4 years in advance, but how it just kind of plays out is really cool. You planted that seed, and then it was there for people when it needed to be.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what it's still there for today. Like, I get a ton of messages on a daily basis of, people wanting to promote their business and, go put their posts in there. And we've kept it very community focused on like helping others, right? If you ask the question of like, what can I do for somebody else, right? It probably belongs in there, right? Or how can I get something, from a local expert, right? Or meet a local expert, or meet somebody interesting through that group and get connected with a local recommendation. It's not a Yelp, it's not a Google. Like, people always ask in the group of like, can I get a recommendation for this or that? And sometimes, like, even as an admin of the group, I'm not ashamed to admit this, like dude, just Google it.
Yeah.
Like what are you asking in this group? What time's Costco open till? Like, just Google it.
Google that.
Like, call Costco and ask them what time they're open till. Like, why is that going into the group? So
I always see that stuff too. It's so funny.
yeah.
I always wonder, when you see a massive group like that, I was just talking about this with one of my guests, Sean Cox from Bash Entertainment, and about how when somebody asks for something and they know they're about to get 100 replies, like how do you sort that out possibly of like, oh, that's the one I'm going to go with,
Oh, that is the post about a realtor. Like, you want to mix my bet, like go search the group and look up realtor. You will see, I've probably done it about a dozen times. Like, somebody will ask for a recommendation for a realtor and it is 250 comments and it's all just tagging people. And as somebody in the industry, I'm like, how is that even helpful? Like, they wanted to know what, like, a good realtor, and they should be posting like, hey, tell me a good realtor and share your experience of why they were good.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of just tagging your friend who's a realtor, because there's hundreds and thousands of realtors in the state of Michigan. I mean, you just throw a rock and you can find one. Throw a rock down Main Street and you can find 6 different real estate offices.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
So
real estate and mortgage.
Real estate, mortgage, and finance. Yeah. That's what Bright. It's not the taste of Brighton anymore. It's the financial programs for Brighton.
I get so angry when I see another one moving in.
God, I could go on. Like, I don't want to turn this podcast episode into a
what grinds my gears.
What grinds my gears? Yes, that is exactly what. But it does grind my gears. But the post for the realtors in the group, like, I just, it's not helpful to have 250 names of people without any explanation. And I let them go sometimes because, I get the message, hey, why don't you, put my post through for a realtor recommendation? You got a plumber recommendation. I'm like, well, there's good plumbers and there's bad plumbers. There's good realtors and there's bad realtors, right? So do your do your due diligence, do your homework on them, ask a friend, and the 250, I just think you're worse off than before you posted.
Oh, I mean,
because now you're like,
no, yeah.
How do I even
overwhelmed?
Yeah. How do I even grade these people?
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's why I always laugh when somebody throws out and they throw a question like that. It's like, how many responses are they getting? And in this particular moment, I was talking to Sean, and he has a great slogan, and it's "Don't just throw a party, throw a bash." And so I recommended him, and when my friend ended up hiring him, because that just stood out of the 100 people that were recommended to be DJs. That comment stood out, and she laughed and called him. So
yeah. That's a great tagline. I love it.
But it was kind of the explanation piece. It wasn't just tagging him in and saying he's good or whatever. It's something that goes beyond that hook that will draw you in.
Yeah, he's got a great, unique selling proproposition. Like that. Does. Yeah, he's great. He's actually hosting one of our parties that we have coming up towards the end of the summer, the family fun day. We're supposed to have on June 21st, or May 21st, but it got postponed.
When is it now?
We don't have a date yet for it.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be somewhere at the end of July or beginning of August.
Nice. That'll be awesome. So I want to go back and talking about social media, and you're talking about the agent that you have that does cold calling, but she had made the point that it makes the cold calling and the calling easier because it's she's building her brand out here on social media. I find that too. I have that same thing. I talk about it's like normally if you meet up with people, you have to go through the song and dance of who are you, why should I know you, why should I like you, why should I trust you, why should I hire you, that kind of thing. You're going through an interview just as much as you're interviewing somebody as a client potentially. By that social media exposure for me, people weren't asking me who I am and who's my story, what my story is, because they were seeing that on social media. That was out there. So I skip that part and I get to focus on the person, which is what I want to happen, right? I want to solve their problem. I want to focus on them, or I want to get to know who they are. And it just helps with that sale so much more. So it's a deadly mix.
Yeah, Hunter, I totally agree. For building, and if you think about anybody you meet on a daily basis or weekly basis, you're constantly like, do I know what they're about? Right? Like, if you meet somebody in the grocery store and they say, yeah, I own a painting business. Like, the first thing you're going to do is go home and research that painting business. If you need that service, you're going to go look them up on social media or Google and try to see, are they legit? Because the last thing somebody wants is the one guy who's going to show up, in a broken down truck that's here to paint your business or your house or whatever. Yeah. So even if you meet somebody in person nowadays, they're still doing homework on you. you still got to have a social media presence. And if they came to my Facebook page and all they saw was, you know, Merry Christmas, Happy Thanksgiving, you know, Happy Easter, and that was the only time I posted throughout the year.
Or a post that you shared from some other industry expert.
Oh yeah, don't even get me started. Yeah, don't even get me started on that. Yeah, you just share an article from somebody else.
Yeah.
But if that's all they saw, they're like, oh, well, he's not very active, you know. But if they go to my page and they see, here's a closing, here's a picture of the client, here's a picture of me at an inspection, here's a picture of me and some motivational thing, and here's a video of a market update. Like, oh, like he's actually out hustling. Like he's out doing work. Like he's active, right? And that's the only thing somebody wants is like an active professional.
And things like this in video also gives people a chance to know you. Because a picture and a post, that's great. But if you can hear somebody, you get to know their personality. Again, before even meeting you, they feel like they know you.
Yep. So that is the big thing that we're focused on right now. I'm in that transition. I'm fully transparent about it. I'm not ashamed to say it. Like I struggle with video, right? Struggle being on video.
Yep.
And it takes that video that you see on my social media. Yes, it took me 20 takes to do that. And I probably put out, I probably put out the second best one. Like, you know, the best one probably I deleted just because I thought something wrong with it, but somebody else would be like, dude, that's your best one. And video is something that we can't get away from in our business. Right? I think in any business nowadays where you want to tell a story, you want to get to know somebody, the video is the best way to do it. And we actually manage 2 YouTube channels. We have one here in Michigan called Living in Ann Arbor. And then we have our other one, Living in Tampa, Florida. And that's all we do is cover videos about what it's like to live here, right? Some of the real estate market, property tours, and just anything you would need to know. So like pros and cons of living in Ann Arbor, cost of living in Ann Arbor, pros and cons of living in Brighton, cost of living in Brighton. Mm-hmm. Like as somebody moving to somewhere, what things are you wanting to know about those areas? And the biggest thing we found is like people want to know what that looks like. People want to know what the houses look like. People want to know what there is to do there for a family. What are the schools like? So we talk about that all the time. And the calls that we get in from YouTube, Jason, like these calls are not your normal real estate calls where like, okay, you're looking for a house. Like, the first question we ask, like, how many bedrooms do you want? How many bathrooms? Those conversations with leads that come through like Facebook or Google PPC, we're trying to convert them, right? That's the sales funnels. Like we're trying to convert them into somebody that wants to work with us. Mm-hmm. Whereas on YouTube, our video's already done that job.
Yes.
Our video's literally done exactly the qualifications that we want, and we're attracting our tribe. So people, when they call in or text us or email us or DM us on social media, they are literally like, here's my social security number. Here's my kids, bank account numbers, like everything. Yep. We want a 4-bedroom. Here's our budget. Like, here's the pre-approval letter from our lender. Help us find a house. And it's like, okay, thanks.
It knocks all those walls down. It's incredible. And I'm so glad that you admitted that you have a hard time making videos. I struggled making videos, and still to this day of making a one-on-one. That's part of the reason why I do podcasts. It's part of the reason why it's like doing this, and it kind of spurred that, what I'm doing in this arena. But people look at you or they look at me and they say, oh, it's easy for you. They don't know that struggle. They didn't know that it took me, 5 hours to shoot my first video. And then, now it was a 2-minute video, right? And then it took 5 hours to do that. I took the probably second or third best one because I deleted the other ones, or, I did a good one and then almost threw up in my mouth and like and ruined the whole take.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's hard. Video is one of those things that even hearing your voice, right? Have you ever recorded your voicemail and you're like, what a loser. Like that's not a great voicemail, but like, it's the same thing. And it's amplified because now you're visualizing yourself and you're hearing yourself, which you're, critical on audio and critical on the visual, but people really don't care. And I think, and here's one of the things I think happened organically that is amazing. Like TikTok, right? TikTok came out and it gave this raw, authentic video, right? Instagram was like this polished, like you had to have this like great looking video or great looking photo. And it still is that to a certain degree, but it's going a little bit more on the authentic side because they're promoting reels now. And TikTok just came out and was like, dude, nobody cares what your video looks like. Don't edit it. Don't put any visual effects in it. You know, just get your message out there. And that for me was like the opening, right? He's like, oh, like this is my style. Like I'm not all about making it look perfect.
Yeah.
I need to go gravitate towards the authentic, like raw video format. And that really, you know, gave me the confidence of like, just do it, man. Just go, because nobody cares about what you look like. Right. Look at all the successful people, right, that have done this before you. If you think they care what they look like on video, you know, where they're waking up out of bed, their hair's a mess, like drinking coffee and like, let me tell you about how I made my millions of dollars. Yes, I want to know.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not asking like, oh, can you go put some clothes on? Can you go like brush your hair? Like, give me the content.
What
give
I
me the
found
message.
recently is people like that organic stuff better as opposed to the stuff that's overproduced. People like that because it's human.
Yeah.
Even my podcast, I've had people reach out to me and tell me that they like my podcast more than somebody with a bunch of famous people because they feel like the guests are reachable in the sense of they see them in the community. They know them. They could meet them at an event. And so it's like it's not far out of reach, like a Tony Robbins or someone that you're like, oh, they're so great.
Right. Yeah, it's that relatable factor.
Yeah.
You know, if I can relate to somebody, then I'm going to gravitate towards that. You know, we rotate through this too on our podcast that we do for Real Estate All Day, and you know, we also do you know, masterminds. We have somebody different host it, and even with, you know, the same audience, if I was saying the same thing that you were saying, right, somebody's going to resonate with my message and just my personality, my tonality, a little bit different than yours.
Yep.
Right. So like that was when I learned that about myself and about how I consume content, I was like, oh man, that really, really makes sense. You know, and now I just, you know, for some content ideas, I'll just grab somebody else's words and like, hey, I'm just going to make this my own, spin this, spin that. And, you know, I got the same content, but I'm saying it differently.
Yeah. We've talked about, again, solving problems. Let's shift it a little bit to the real estate piece because you attract them and you land sales and whatnot by building your brand and social media. But then you started it because it was all about that experience. And let's talk about that experience in solving problems and taking care of your clients.
Yeah. So real estate's one of those industries where there's no day that's the same out of all the other days. No transactions that the same to another transaction. There's lessons that you learn from each of them. There's fundamentals, you know, to get through the process, and you're ultimately dealing with somebody's largest purchase or sale of their home, and there's a lot of emotion involved in that, you know. So they're on so many different levels. You know, some days I'm a coach, some days I'm a motivational speaker, some days I'm actually a real estate agent, and you know, here's a little secret, like, you know, I don't tell people I'm a real estate agent. I say I'm a marketing guru who just so happens to have my real estate license, you know?
Yeah.
And that's really what it boils down to. But all the other hats that we wear in our business, you know, from, you know, coach, advisor, marriage counselor, you know, all of those things are real, you know, and you have to deal with those on a daily basis. And I love the real estate industry because we have so many different things that I can do on a daily basis if I wanted to grow my business, right? And I'm a big fan of just growing your highest and best use of your time. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I don't like to do is work in the transaction. So once I get somebody under contract, going from what we call contract to close, like that's not my strong suit. You know, making sure we hit the inspection date, or, you know, we're getting the contract over to the mortgage lender, all very, very necessary and a requirement of getting the contract to the closing table. But I don't enjoy that personally. Like as a professional, like I want to be doing something else. I want to be building, I want to be growing and creating and continuously, making connections. And if I have to get bogged down in those details, I'm going to find myself in a very unhappy place, you know, in my business. So I've leveraged that out. And I learned that growing a team, you know, is my path in real estate. There's a lot of successful individual real estate agents that can do it all, right? And they'll tell you there's parts of their business they enjoy, they don't enjoy. I want to grow something larger than me, so that's why I chose the team path. But yeah, back to your original question, like, the day-to-day of solving problems is the same. Like I still get to wake up and look all my clients in the face and say, okay, what are we trying to accomplish today? Whether it's somebody just getting started on the sale of their home or actually working through something that, may have happened during a transaction where we need to problem solve, find a solution. And that's the thing. Most people, they don't want to deal with the problem. They want options, right? They want to know that you have the solution. And if you don't have the solution, you're at least seeking it out. And that's where I always position all the conversations is I'm not an expert, right? If somebody's coming to me to sell their house for a certain amount of money and they're expecting that, like, I'm probably not the right agent for you. Like, I'm not making any false promises. I'm going to work my tail off to sell your home. But if you have unrealistic expectations of what you're doing with the sale of your home, then I'm
not going to overpromise.
Yeah, I'm just not going to take on the business. There's been multiple times where I passed on listings or, told the buyer like, hey, they should probably work with my colleagues and I'll refer you out because we just don't get along together. Right. And it's a huge thing that I think a lot of real estate agents don't do is just really know their place.
Well, and it's a certain mentality as well, because there's scarcity mentality and there's abundance mentality. And what you're operating on is that there's enough clients out there, there's enough people out there that you can serve the people that you enjoy working with, or that you can serve the right way. And then there's people that you don't want to work with. The problem is in sales in general, especially real estate, when there's so many agents out there and there's so many, there's so many people that know real estate agents, and how do I choose the one that I go to? There's that scarcity that they've got to deal with everything. And so they try to fit that square peg in the round hole, even though they know that that's not the right person.
100%. Yeah. And that's going to lead to, ultimately, if you're looking at it from a consumer perspective, like, even if they use, the agent that, their mom and dad told them to use or so on and so forth, like, they may be getting into a position where they don't get along, right? And they're now feeling like they're constantly asking for a level of service that they never really were going to get in the first place, from that agent. So it leads to a bad consumer experience, but also leads as a professional, like, this with consulting clients, if so, Rob and I talked about this, but like, if the first question you get is about, like commission or like your fees and, they're trying to beat you up on price, or, you're starting to get these indicators that, you're trying to take me out of my normal process.
Yep.
Right. And what I do on a regular, because I have a process, right? How I onboard sellers, how I onboard, buying clients. And they go through the process for a reason, because we're big on education. We're big on making sure they have their ducks in a row and they're well prepared to go out into the market and do whatever they're planning to do. Right? We're here to advise and bring to that closing table. So if somebody's trying to take you outside of your process, right, and you bend over backwards, like, oh, I really want to serve Jason, but he's asking me for a commission break, and he's also not going to clean his house. He's not going to remove all the junk. Like, this is not what we normally do, but I like Jason. I'll just do it. Well, guess what? We're going to fast forward 3 months and we're going to have a really rough relationship.
Really rough.
Yeah. And it's going to take so much time and energy. I'm going to be so disappointed in myself that I caved on this stuff.
Yep.
And said like, oh, it's okay because I like you.
Yep.
Right. And now your friendship's jeopardized and you've sunken so much time and energy into that one particular client that it's now taken away from the rest of your business.
And most likely they beat you up on price, so they're paying you the least. They probably not paying you on time, and they're the pickiest. And the list goes on. And oh, by the way, it's not going to be successful because you're outside of your process that's successful.
Exactly.
And that's what happens again when there's that scarcity mentality, and that's why sales has such a bad name. That's why it's so easy to me. I think sales is so easy. We make it so difficult. Like, it's easy to stand out and be the difference.
Yep.
Because when you know that it's all about serving people and you have your integrity on that piece of, I'm not just going to go outside of my process. When you can have that confidence to say, listen, I have this process for a reason and it's successful. And if you don't want to follow that process, you're probably not the right fit for our agency. That's a lot of power to be able to say that.
It feels good.
It feels good.
It does feel good. And that's the thing is like, you only have so many hours in a day. So hearing no from somebody, I appreciate when somebody in a sales role tells me no.
Yeah.
I'm like, good. I'd rather
Cross it off my list now.
yeah,
I
I'd
don't
rather you
have to-
tell me no now than to learn that, this was a bad fit 3 months from now.
Yeah.
So I have much more respect if somebody says, no, we don't do that, or no, we're not going to do that, but here's 2 other people that you might recommend. I'm like, awesome. You just saved me a ton of time and a ton of headache.
Yep.
And now I have respect for that person because they didn't try to fit me into a round peg or whatever that analogy is.
And that's the thing is, and people think, oh, I'm throwing away an opportunity, but that opportunity could come back, because I have had that before where I've said, I'm not the right fit. That person's went out somewhere else, but then they've referred somebody to me.
Yes. That's a wonderful thing to happen. When you can get that referral engine going, and all those people that, you told no to are now in the respect category, and they're in your top 100 of like your referrals, like holy smokes, now you're humming.
And have you ever had somebody say like, nobody's ever told me no before, or like nobody's ever said I'm not the right fit? They kind of have that stunned look on their face. Nobody's ever denied them the business.
Yeah. I work with, quite a bit of for sale by owners as well. And for sale by owners are probably one of the toughest, people who are selling their homes, and you're trying to crack into this, this mentality of like, I can do it on my own. You're trying to overcome this belief that like, you as a sales professional, they've literally said like, I don't need a realtor. The same person that is coming to ask me for the business, I don't need you. Right. It's like, it's so interesting when I look at this, and we're going through some scripts and role plays right now with a few of our newer agents, and we go through these objections. And one of the biggest things that we see from a for sale by owner is like, will you reduce your commission? And I go into it and I say no, right? But I back it up with a little bit more of a response, which is no, I won't. And for agents that do reduce their commission and cut their commission, it's a big red flag in my book. And let me tell you why, right? Just that one little sentence right there of, hey, that's a big red flag in my book. And let me tell you why, is I'm telling you that I have a concern. I'm not saying that your concern is or your ask is wrong.
Yeah.
I'm telling you I have a concern, and let me explain. So that go into detail and usually follow up with that. If this agent is going to not only not negotiate their own income and cave on their commission immediately when you ask without any explanation, what do you think they're going to do with your largest asset? How are they going to negotiate an offer on your house? Or when it comes time to reduce the price, what do you think their first reaction is going to be?
Yeah.
Well, just do
Do
it.
it. Yep. They don't have the confidence to push back.
Right. So here, like that's my no to clients. Like, those are the things that I don't budge on. I always have an explanation for it, and I'm steadfast. Mm-hmm. If you don't want that, and I'm not the agent for you. I very confident in what I can do to sell a home. There's a lot of things I do that other regular agents don't do, to sell the home. So if you like those services, we can definitely continue the conversation. Otherwise, we might not be a good fit.
In that piece of doing that education, how many people then say, oh, okay, that makes sense?
Yeah, quite a bit. You see the light bulbs going, but there's always those secondaries like, oh, that makes sense, but I'm still going to try it on my own.
Because there's so many unconfident salespeople out there, people will give you pushbacks, not because it's a deal breaker. They just want to see what they can get. And they're used to people by giving that pushback, hey, will you cut your fee? People are like, oh, like fumbling over themselves and being like, oh, maybe I'll do this. I'll give you this concession, or I'll make this move, or I'll just give it to you. They're not used to somebody giving that pushback and why. So they're just throwing out stuff that's like surface level.
Right. Well, they're also stacking on why they're ultimately going to tell you no in the long run. Mm-hmm. Right. Like if somebody doesn't truly want to work with a real estate agent, they're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
They're just not going to do it at the end of the day. But there becomes a time when you look at the averages, and as a sales professional, like, all the money's made in the follow-up, so that first conversation, like when I go and call a first sale by owner, I'm not expecting a signed contract off that conversation. Like if that's the expectation you have, then you're going to fail at converting it, because you're going to call every first sale by owner and you're going to let all this money just go out of the bottom of your sales funnel. So it's the call, it's the face-to-face appointment, and then it's the follow-up.
Yep.
Right. So like embedding that confidence and that authority, figure of you are the agent, right? If you really have that belief, like if you truly walk into that and believe I am the best agent for you to sell your house, and you exude that through your confidence, then after that meeting, like that's the impression that they're going to have of you, whether they told you yes or no right there on the spot. Now the real work begins. Now you have to follow up, right? Every single week, every single day, right? Continuously following up. And here's the averages. 80% of for sale by owners will eventually list with an agent. All right. 80% of the conversions will happen on the 12th contact.
Yeah.
12th contact.
Yeah.
Think about that, right?
Yeah.
80% of your conversions, listing appointments will happen on the 12 times. So I have to make a call to you first. I have to have a face appointment with you. It's 2. I have 10 more to go. I have a text, a call, email, like something's got to happen where I need to interact with you in order for me to ask for the business again. 10 times.
How many people make one follow-up call?
Oh, there's so many. Like everybody does.
Yeah. One follow-up call, maybe. And then like after that, I think 80% drop off. I think 80% make only one follow-up call.
100%. Like I remember when I first started calling for sub owners, like I think I made one call that first day.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, F this. Like that person was so mean to me, like so nasty. Like, I don't know if I have it in me. Like I'm gonna puke right now. Like this is what it's gonna be like every single call. But once you start, and I learned this from one of my coaches, is if you start monetizing all the no's in the industry. So like every no I hear, I'm like, okay, that was $100.
Yeah.
That was $100. Right. So for me to actually get to a yes, I have to earn $1,000 on the no's.
Yeah.
I had to earn that. Because those commission checks, I mean, sell $500,000 house, like it's a good commission check, So like that one yes can pay for the whole entire month. So 29 days of no's on day 30, like you're going to hear yes.
Yeah. But follow-up calls are even easier than like a cold call. Like you said at the beginning, they suck, If you say you love cold calling, there's something wrong with you. I'll just say it out there. Hey, raise your hand if you love it. Great, good for you. I hated it, but it's one of those things that's necessary evil, right? Like I hate running, but if, sometimes you have to do it. You have to, if you want to be in shape, you've got to add that in your routine. But follow-up calls, you've already had some level of interaction. It's, but people stop it after that one because they don't want to bug people. They're pesky, or they're just lazy, or it falls out of their system and they forget. And then once they forget and 2 months have gone by or however long has gone by, they're like, oh, I couldn't possibly call that person again. And so it just falls out of the rotation. Most people are not following up.
Yeah. All the above. Everything, every excuse that you just named, happens, with agents. We see it, I see it in my business. I see it in other agents' businesses that we're looking at. And it's just one of those things, like consistency is key with everything. Like you can't be in the position you are unless you're willing to do something that somebody else is not, so you got to continuously follow up. And, I think one big holdback that a lot of people have, in sales is like, well, I don't know what to say in the follow-up. Like, and most people end up saying, oh, hey, Jason, this is Eric. I'm just following up with you. Are you still thinking about selling your home?
Yeah.
Just by saying the word follow up to that person, you've lost their attention.
Yep.
They're like, no, dude, like, yes, I'm still trying to sell my home, but you're not the answer. All right. Come to them with value. All right. Find something like, I'm always searching for like this little nugget or something that I can just have a conversation with, whether it's a news article or, something that somebody else told me, and just bring it to them. Like, hey, I'll call them up and say, hey, John, I'll do Johnny. Hey, Johnny, did you see what that headline in Forbes today? No, what are you talking about? What does that have to do with me?
Yeah.
Well, it talked about we're getting out of a seller's market. And I just wanted to kind of unpack that if you were thinking that the seller's market's over. And now I have their attention, right? Now I'm earning the conversation as opposed to, hey, Johnny, did you did you sign the papers yet? Or did you want to list your house? Like, I don't even have the vernacular in my vocabulary anymore. I think I lost it, but like,
Good.
trying to like get the word follow up out of your vocabulary is probably one of the best things you can do.
Yeah, supply that value. And a lot of times your conversations will leave you clues. You'll have a good reference point of what was the last thing you guys talked about? What was something that they're interested in? Is there a home that came up in the neighborhood that they said that they would be interested in? Now you have something and a reason to follow up there. That's one touch point.
Right. Yeah. You're just constantly always looking for that conversational piece. Are you familiar with the Ford model?
No.
So there's this Ford, it's an acronym. So the acronym Ford, you go into a conversation thinking about four things. But here's the acronym. So F is family, O is occupation, R is recreation, D is dreams.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
So if you can anchor any of the conversation pieces back to the Ford model, then you're getting to know somebody on a different level. Right. It's not just surface level conversation like how's the weather, how's this. Like as I'm touring someone's home, I'm looking for something that I can pull one of these four anchor points back to, whether it's family. If I walk into a house and they have pictures on their walls of their grandkids and their kids, okay, this is a very family oriented individual. Mm-hmm. They're very proud of their grandkids. They're very proud of the family that they've built. Dig into that. Grandparents love to talk about kids.
Yeah.
Right. And then if I'm in the same house and I go into the guy's office and he's got sailboats or, some like, war stuff on the wall. Okay. Now I got something to talk about. Either it's recreational, occupational, or he might've been in the military.
Yep.
He might just love sailing. Like now I'm drawing that out. Like now I know the questions to ask. Now I can get to somebody. And if they are doing the talking, right, then I'm doing my job. Right. I've got them talking to me and they're engaged.
Yes. Yep.
That's the wonderful part about it. And that's, constantly like, this is probably one of the only podcasts I've shared a lot of this on, of like really the psychology in sales.
Psychology in sales. It is a psychology.
Yeah.
I love and to highlight what you just said. If they're doing all the talking, you did your job. I think, again, that's a stigma in sales that the fastest talker, the slickest talker, the person that has all the answers. We put so much pressure on ourselves in sales. When I say sales is so easy, but we make it so hard, we feel like we have to have all the answers. And that's why most of the time we're on skates, we're playing defense. Mm-hmm. If you're playing offense, you're sitting there asking them questions. And guess what? People like talking about themselves. They like talking about their grandkids. They like talking about the sports teams they follow. They like talking about serving time in the military or their experiences. And so when you see there's a cool picture on the wall, there's probably a reason why that's on the wall, right?
Right. Yeah. And after you leave that interaction, the one thing that person's going to be thinking about is how you made them feel.
How you made them feel. Yep.
If you can make somebody feel like you were listening and you make someone feel like you were attentive, you're understanding of their needs, and you repeat back to them, what it is that you guys set out to do. It's huge. Right. And I was never one to really get into scripts and role play and have that scripted dialogue, with somebody. And I learned very quickly in real estate, it's not the script. And that's my misunderstanding of it and my immaturity, in the sales role.
It's the stigma of the word and what you think it is.
Exactly. So I always kind of shun that away. I'm like, I don't need that. Like I got this. Like I know how to talk to people. And until I had enough conversations where I learned well, that didn't really go that well. And I was like, all right, let me get into these conversations. And that's where I really started diving in, to the psychology side of it and learned the Ford model, learned, all that stuff. But it's at the end of the day, you want to be able to impact somebody. And if you're just asking the right questions, and that's all sales is just ask the right questions and get them talking and then position your solution to solve that problem. Right. And staying in your boundaries. I'm not saying, just find a solution for everything. If the answer is no, the answer is no. But position your
If you know
solution.
what your solutions are, then you can intentionally formulate your questions, which when you talk about role playing and script, when I think of a script, it's like preparing yourself of knowing what is it that you're after? What is your desired result? And what problems do you solve? And how can you get the answers from them and be curious about who they are, what their goals are, and how you can help serve them in that goal? So if you're asking those questions, they're telling you.
100%. Yep. They're gonna continue talking.
Yeah.
You won't get them to shut up. I mean, I've had appointments where I've been on the appointment for an hour and we haven't even gotten to any of my information that I wanted to cover.
Absolutely.
And who cares if that comes out? Right? If I get the listing based off of that,
Yeah.
that I've done my job.
Yeah. They just know they like you, right?
Exactly.
People will, when you leave a room, you don't have to talk about yourself, but they're like, I want to do business with Eric. It's all about how you make somebody feel. And most of the time, if you think about it, our own loved ones or close family members are consumed in their world. They're on their phone. They're, doing their stuff. They don't always make you feel like you're seen, felt, and heard. So when you can come in as a salesperson or somebody in that entrepreneurial role and you're solving somebody's problem and you're truly listening to them, you're doing something completely different than what anybody else that encounters them is doing.
Yeah, I strongly agree with that. There's always this question of like, I get asked this sometimes on listing appointments. It's like, what sets you apart, or what makes a good real estate agent, or what questions should we be asking you that we're not asking? I love that question.
Yeah.
I started incorporating that into some of my conversational points. Is like, what questions am I not asking that I should be, right?
Yep.
Because I might be missing something. And when they start asking me those questions, it kind of makes me laugh because, like, on paper, there's no difference between, myself and another real estate agent down the street. We are both licensed real estate agents. The biggest difference is that person's knowledge about how to navigate the transaction, how to position, your home, and all the softer skills in there.
Yep.
Just having a real estate license does not make you what I would consider a real estate agent. You're licensed to practice real estate. Doesn't make you a great real estate agent, right? Everything you learn in real estate school teaches you nothing about how to run a business, teaches you nothing about how to, be a real estate agent. Basically teaches you how to have ethical boundaries, right?
Yep.
Be an ethical person and not, be discriminative, towards people. And that was one of the, it's kind of funny because, like, when I got into the business, I thought, what I said before is like, I thought, hey, I'm licensed. Like, now everyone's going to come do business with me. And like, that was not the case. Like, you have to prove that you're actually making an impact. And I'll tie this back to social media too. But like, you're doing real estate, you're selling, you're helping your friends, family, and you could do that and not share any of that information on social media and do just fine. All right. If you have a big database and you can continue working with friends and family off referrals, that's fine. If you really want to grow, right, what that's telling people is that other people enjoy working with you, right? And that's the story behind it. It's not the fact that Eric's showing, he sold $1 million home, or Eric's showing, he's got 5 properties under contract. I'm sharing the story about somebody who put their trust in me, and I was successful in helping that person, right? And if we can get a customer testimonial out of that and have them share that story, now it's more impactful.
So much more impactful. Yeah.
So much more impactful, because that's what that person in the grocery store, if you meet them and they go home and, look you up, well, they're going to look at my Google, they're going to look at my Facebook. And if I don't have reviews there, like, well, this guy's, he's doing deals, but like, nobody took the time to leave him a review. I must not be that great of a real estate agent.
Yeah. So many people talk the talk, so few actually walk the walk. And that's what it comes down to. How can you say, I'm the best, I listen, I discover my clients, I follow up? You don't say it, you do it.
Yep.
I had somebody that I had a meeting with probably about 6 months ago. And this person spent the first half of our meeting telling me about how they were different than everybody else in their industry, how they listen, how they discover, they don't fit the square peg in the round hole. They're only after the right clients, blah, blah, blah. And then the next half of our meeting took me through a sales presentation without qualifying or discovering if I was a good fit.
So he said all the right things.
They said all the right things. They didn't do the right things. And that's the huge, huge difference. And to be the difference to people is actually doing what you say you're going to do. Everybody knows that you should listen to people. Everybody knows that you should ask questions and discover their needs and solve a problem and, all that stuff. It's not new. If I go and do that, and I'm talking at a seminar, or people listening to this podcast right now, they're shaking their head and they think that they're doing it.
Right.
However, 90% aren't. And
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to understand, like, what is important to you as an outcome of this, right? What are the things? And I love that question that, like what sets you apart, from other agents, as a follow-up question to that is like, well, what's important to you in a real estate agent, or what's important to you in somebody, like whatever service, fill in the blank, like whatever service provider you're looking for, like what is important for you, and out of those questions or those answers that they're going to give you, now you can start qualifying and seeing like, are we a good fit? Like, well, we want some, and here's what I hear 99% of the time. It's not about, well, we want someone who sold 100 homes. We want someone that's going to, get us, the highest price in the subdivision. None of that ever surfaces. What does surface is we want somebody that's going to listen. We want somebody that's going to have our best interests in mind.
Yep.
We want somebody that's going to care, about us. We don't want somebody that's just going to list us on the MLS and then walk away. So like now your heartstrings are pulling. Like now you have an insight, and without asking that question, I could have easily said, well, I do the best social media marketing. I spend thousands of dollars on marketing the property. We have the best photos. We have, we do open houses. We do door knocking. Yes, all of the above. And yeah, you should look at somebody's marketing plan if you're going to hire that real estate.
Yep.
But the fact that you're asking the questions means that I need to care about what you're caring about in order for us to get along.
Yeah.
Or else we're just two ships in the night passing.
Because you're right, you may not be the good fit, right? Like what makes you the best real estate agent? I might be the best real estate agent for them, but I might not be the best real estate agent for you.
Right.
What's important to you?
Yeah. I've actually had somebody tell me before that they wanted somebody older. Like, no joke. Like we want an older real estate agent because in their mind, older meant more experience, better service. I had the conversation with them and I said, I totally respect that. I understand where you're coming from, but here's what I want to say. The real estate industry has changed quite a bit, right? How homes are selling, how data is being compiled on information to consumers, right? Not only do we have to sell the home, from a market data perspective, but we have to get in the mind of buyers, right? And position the property for that ideal client. So like there's a lot that goes into the marketing. I could go do a whole nother episode with this on it, but like there's a lot that goes into listing, writing the description and positioning that for a house. And if somebody just says, well, we want an older person because we feel like that's a better fit. Well, I think that older person knows how to use Instagram, Facebook. Like, if this house is going to go to a newer family that is going to be 25 to 30 years old with 2 kids, yeah, there's a good portion of them that will see it on the MLS. For anybody listening, yes, the MLS, right? Like, but we sell most of our homes by visually getting eyeballs on it from Facebook, Instagram, all the above.
Where everybody's at.
Yeah, where everybody's at. All right, it's an interrupt. It's a pattern interrupt on your social media feed. So if you just judge somebody off of their age, you're again not asking the right questions to make sure they're a qualified agent to sell a home in today's current market.
Mm-hmm. That's key. That is key. Eric, man, this has been awesome. I'm so glad you were able to dive in and talk more sales and sales psychology stuff on this podcast versus some others you've been on.
Yeah, so this has been fun, man. I love doing this. I think we're gonna have to make this a weekly thing.
Let's do it. Let's do it, man. Thanks so much. It's been a huge honor to have you on and again get to know you more. And I could sit and rattle sales stuff all day. So I had to look at the time just to see has it been an hour or 15? I don't know.
It goes quick.
It does go by really, really quick. So man, thanks a lot for coming on out.
Absolutely, man.